The Lair of the Lansing Leprechaun, chapters 10, 11, and 12. Chapter 10. The feeling I had at that moment was unlike any other I'd experienced before. It was a mix of fear, anxiousness, curiosity, and worry. I was afraid we were doing something wrong in a place we didn't belong. This made me feel anxious and tense. What in the heck is this place? Cornell stammered. I shook my head, but I didn't say anything. Before us was a hallway of sorts. The floor was cement, the walls were gray, gritty cinder block. The ceiling was flat and smooth and painted a flat white in a shoddy, haphazard way, as if someone was in a hurry and just wanted to get it done. A single bare light bulb glowed from a ceramic socket. Ahead of us, not far away, I could see a shadow that went off to the left, indicating where the hall turned, so obviously it led somewhere. I have a bad feeling that we shouldn't be here, Cornell said. Me too, I said. Let's go home. I must admit that I was really curious about what we were looking at and what we were experiencing. Dozens of questions spiraled through my mind. I wondered what it was we were seeing, how long the hole in the door leading to this hallway had been here. I wondered who had done it and why, and I wondered where it went. Maybe my mom or dad knows what this is, I said. Maybe it's some sort of storm shelter, Cornell suggested. You know, a place for people to go if there's bad weather, like a tornado or something. I shook my head. I don't think so, I said. There were no signs pointing to it. If it was a storm shelter, you'd think there would be something showing the way. Otherwise, no one would find it. In fact, we wouldn't be here if we hadn't accidentally come across that big hole in the ground. Yeah, I guess you're right, Cornell said. Well, it was built by someone for some reason. He pointed, and it must lead somewhere. Cornell was right, and my curiosity was gnawing at me. I really wanted to explore more, but I knew better. Maybe we can come back here and explore, just a little bit, and we won't go far. Just far enough to find out where this hallway goes. Bentley suddenly let out a low growl, and his body stiffened. He was staring into the brightly lit room. We saw nothing, we heard nothing. Being underground as we were, even though not far, had muffled the sounds of traffic and any birds that might have been around. What is it? I asked Bentley, as if he would answer me, despite the fact that he's a dog. Instead, Bentley did something totally unexpected. I hadn't had a chance to attach his leash, and now he bounded into the room and past us. His nails clicked on the flat cement floor, and the metal tags of his collar jangled. I didn't even have time to call him back. In seconds, he was gone. He turned the corner at the end of the hall and vanished. "Bentley!" I called. Nothing. "Bentley!" Still nothing. This time he wasn't coming back. Now we had no choice. Now we had to go deeper underground, whether we wanted to or not. Chapter 11. "Where are you going?" Cornell asked. He was still standing behind me, and I had already stepped through the doorway and onto the cement floor. I turned. "I'm going to find my dog," I replied. Then I turned. "Bentley, Bentley, come!" "Here we go again," Cornell said. "Do you really think we should do this?" "I have to get my dog," I insisted. "Bentley!" In seconds, I had reached the end of the hall. To the left of me, the hallway continued, dark and shadowy and cavernous. "Bentley?" I called out. My voice echoed in the murky gloom. Cornell had joined me, and we both peered into the darkness. "Do you see a light switch?" he asked. I scanned the walls around me. "No," I replied. "Well," Cornell said very matter-of-factly, "we can't go down the hallway if we can't see." "Sure we can," I said. "Come on." I started walking cautiously on the cement floor. "Bentley?" I called out again. I stopped and listened for the scratching of his paws or the jingling of his collar, but I heard nothing. "This is kind of freaking me out," Cornell said. "I don't think we should be here." "We're not doing anything wrong," I said. "All I want to do is get my dog, and then we'll leave." "I just have a really bad feeling about this," said Cornell. "Like I said," I replied, "we aren't doing anything wrong. And besides, I'm not leaving without my dog." "Whatever," Cornell said, "but I still don't think we should be here. We should leave and go back to your house. I'm sure Bentley would make his way home on his own." I shook my head. "No way," I said. "I'm not taking that chance, but when we find him, I'll put his leash on." I cupped my hands around my mouth. "Bentley!" I shouted. "Okay," Cornell said. "How about this? How about we go home, get a flashlight, and come back? That way we can at least see where we're going. And we can tell your mom so she knows where we are." Again, I shook my head. "We don't have the time," I replied. "Bentley!" There was a noise behind us. Cornell and I turned at the same time. Although it came from the opposite direction of where Bentley had run, I was sure it was probably him. My relief turned to all-out horror when I saw the deranged, tiny figure standing in the hallway, glaring back at us. Chapter 12. The Leprechaun. There was no mistake. He was small, standing no taller than my waist, and he looked like every leprechaun I'd ever seen in cartoons, drawings, paintings, and movies, except for one awful thing. This leprechaun looked mean and mad. Cornell backed up and stopped when he bumped into me. What in the world is that?" he whispered. "It's the same little guy I told you I saw," I whispered back. "I think it's a leprechaun." "Impossible," Cornell said. "Well, you and I are both seeing it," I said. "I know what we're seeing," Cornell replied. "I just don't believe it." I think the scariest part was that we were staring at a real, live leprechaun. The scariest part was that the expression on the leprechaun's face. His brow was furrowed and his thick eyebrows were knitted together. Hatred burned in his eyes. And he most definitely was not smiling. Seconds ticked by. Cornell and I didn't move. The leprechaun didn't move. Should I say something, I wondered? And while I was wondering what I would say, I was also wondering how we would get away. He was blocking our way out as the entrance to the tunnel was behind him. Still, he was small, so he might not be fast enough to keep up. Maybe Cornell and I could dart past him, run up the steep mouth of the entrance, and outpace him. After all, our legs were a lot longer than his. I was sure we could run much faster. But he was a leprechaun. Suppose he could work magic or something like that, make us disappear, or worse. Then what? From behind us came a noise, and it startled me at first, but then it was instantly recognizable. The jingle of tiny metal, the frantic scratching of claws on cement. "Bentley!" I turned for a moment to see my dog trotting toward me. Then he was at my side, brushing against my legs and nuzzling my hands. When Bentley saw the tiny man before us, he stopped. His ears went up, and his body displayed the posture of being on high alert. Tense body, mouth open, tail straight and stiff. A small, low growl percolated in his throat. The leprechaun glared at Bentley. Bentley glared at the leprechaun. I grabbed my dog by the collar and quickly fastened his leash so he couldn't go anywhere. Finally, Cornell spoke to the strange tiny man. "Look, dude, we don't want to hurt you or anything. We just want to go." Cornell stopped speaking when the leprechaun moved. The small man raised one hand up, displaying a black velvet bag with a silver rope that tightened around the opening, sealing it closed. With his other hand, his finger found the top of the bag, pulling the cloth away and forming an opening in the bag. He reached into the bag and raised his hand, pulling something out and holding it up for us to see. A gold coin. The piece was about twice the size of a quarter and was embossed with features I couldn't make out. And although we were out of the direct light of day, the gold coin shined as if reflecting the sun. It's all true, I thought. All those legends of leprechauns and pots of gold at the end of the rainbow, those stories aren't myths after all, they're real. At my side, Bentley growled louder, and I gave a gentle tug on his leash, just to remind him that he couldn't go anywhere. "Shh," I said. The leprechaun lowered the coin to his side. Then, with a single timed movement, he tossed it in the air toward us. The coin tumbled up, flipping and spinning, shining and glowing. Clearly, he intended one of us to catch it. I reached my hand up, but stopped. I stared, my jaw hanging open. The gold coin had stopped moving in the air before us. It was still tumbling and twirling, but it remained in one spot, defying gravity, suspended in the air like a helium balloon. I was about to take a step backward, but that's when the unthinkable happened. The coin suddenly exploded, covering Cornell, Bentley, and me with a fine coating of shiny gold dust.